So today we cancel another TikTok personality who is also a body positivity advocate. Mallory Burgess describes herself as an exercise physiologist and these days has cultivated a pretty decent following on social media where she criticizes so-called diet culture and calls out fat shaming and tries to explode the myth that, as she puts it, weight can be easily controlled. What's interesting about Miss Burgess is that, according to my brief Google search anyway, like for 2 seconds, her own backstory completely undermines her current stance on the supposed myth of weight loss. In fact, the first thing that popped up when I went on Google and I was trying to figure out who this person is so I can cancel them, the first thing that popped up was a headline in the Baltimore Sun from 2014, and this was the headline: McDaniel student loses half her body weight. The article tells us about a Mallory Burgess who was so heavy that she couldn't fit into restaurant booths, she said, but now, that is in 2014 now, she lost over 150 pounds and found a new lease on life. Fast forward to 2022, and here's what she is now saying.
What is something you used to strongly believe in that you no longer believe in at all?
That body weight is something you can easily change and control. Oh, look, another random person on TikTok making outrageous claims with no sources to make them feel better about their choices. No, Andrew, I read. You know all those peer-reviewed studies that you never actually read in your sophomore year college class? I read those for my job. And there is a growing body of research on weight and body size that is emerging within the last 5 years that's finding a lot of it is genetically predetermined. That all it takes is for one little chromosome to get a mutation and oops, that person puts on weight very easily or can't put weight on at all. And sure, some of those factors are external, but not nearly as much as the diet industry will lead you to believe. You know, that billion-dollar industry whose primary interest is making sure that you keep hating yourself so you'll keep giving them money. Maybe it's time to shift our narrative.
Yes, I mean, how could anyone think that people can lose weight just by eating less? I mean, I know why you should think that, Mallory, given that you did that exact thing. And even without your personal history, it should still be obvious that weight can be controlled, maybe not easily controlled. Okay, so that's where you get us on the technicality. It's not easy in the sense that self-discipline isn't necessarily easy, but it can be simply controlled, though. So let's just call it that. As I mentioned last week, I just read a book called In the Heart of the Sea about a group of 19th century whalers who were shipwrecked in the middle of the Pacific. It's a great book, by the way. Most of them died of starvation. A few survived. The survivors, when they were finally rescued, were gaunt and skeletal. There was no obesity among them. In fact, there has never been an obese shipwreck survivor rescued after months at sea or stranded on an island. Not one in history. Why is that? Because they don't have a lot to eat. And when you eat less, you lose weight. That's the correlation. Now, I'm not suggesting that people should starve themselves. I'm merely pointing out the calories you consume do indeed have a direct and quite predictable impact on your weight. If weight was purely genetic, then there should be lots of morbid obesity, even in places where people don't have a lot to eat. And yet, when you look at this map, for example, a map of obesity rates by country, it shows that, what a coincidence, the countries that have the most to eat and where people tend to be the most sedentary also have the most obesity. 36% of the United States is obese. In Tanzania, it's 9%. Indonesia, 7%. Isn't that quite an amazing anomaly? All of the purples, the rates between 0 and 10%, are all concentrated in the third world, while the highest rates are all in the first world. How do you explain that? Do they not have the fat gene down there in Mozambique? We have all the fat genes here and all the fast food. Talk about bad luck. But this is all academic. Well, one thing I can tell you as a 4-star chef myself, amateur chef, but I consider myself a 4-star chef, your kitchen is not complete without great kitchen knives. And that's why you need Kamikoto. Kamikoto taps into more than 800 years of traditional techniques from Honshu, Japan. Kamikoto also uses steel sourced from mills in Japan, and each blade is crafted using techniques that have been honed and perfected by generations of knife smiths. Each knife comes in a beautiful heavy-duty ash wood box, It makes sure that the knife is stored safely as well. Each Kamikoto knife goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Our expert bladesmiths forge and shape raw steel into hardy blades, polishing and sharpening them to an excruciatingly fine edge. Each knife is individually inspected. Kamikoto is so confident that their knives will work for you that each knife comes with a lifetime guarantee. Because of their single bevel edge, Kamikoto knives can achieve an unbelievably sharp edge you just can't get with other knives. They can cut through your ribeye like butter. That is guaranteed. Kamikoto is currently having a massive extended New Year sale, and on top of that sale, you can get an additional $50 off any purchase you make with discount code Matt Walsh. So click the link below or go to kamikoto.com/Matt Walsh and use promo code Matt Walsh to save an extra $50 today. Mallory has a more recent video that raises, I think, some more interesting points. Well, the video doesn't really raise interesting points, but interesting points can be raised in response to it. So here you go.
A little PSA for the girlies that hop on this app and do like the latest gross weekly body checking trend, or do a what I eat in a day and flash their abs, or just generally fish for compliments that they are in fact not fat. Come here. Stop doing free labor for the patriarchy. The hierarchy of bodies where one is considered the best, that was designed by men. Like maybe you've noticed that heterosexual men have an incredibly narrow definition of what's attractive, and heterosexual women have like a much broader one. That's by design. If your feminism does not include fighting fat phobia and body liberation, it's not feminism. That's just another wing of the patriarchy, babes. And there might come a day where you gain weight, and you're still gonna need feminism then. Because if you think men are awful when you're thin, oof, I got really bad news for you. You don't need to trash other body types to make you feel good about yourself.
Okay, first of all, the patriarchy, she says that, they're doing free labor for the patriarchy. I want to be clear. The patriarchy does not expect women to do free labor. We will happily pay you 70 cents for every dollar a man earns. Second, you notice how people who are not thin always feel entitled to tell people who are thin how they should and shouldn't feel about their bodies. So for all the talk about fat shaming, the fact is the only kind of socially acceptable body shaming that you ever encounter in our culture today is the kind you just heard in that video. Third, most importantly, here's a point that I've been wanting to make for a while, and our friend Mallory has given me the opening. Much of this body positivity stuff is very thinly veiled misinjury, okay? The body positivity people, most of them, really just hate men. And I don't mean that they hate men just because the body positivity stuff is never meant to encourage men, but only women. All of the fat people we're supposed to celebrate are women, all of them. And that's true, but that's not why I'm saying this. I'm saying it because of what she just said. People like Mallory don't like the traditional feminine form because, for one thing, it takes some work to maintain and they're too lazy. And second, because that's the form that men prefer. So she says with disdain that men have a very narrow conception of what they find attractive, as opposed to women who are more expansive. Now, the second part of that isn't really true. Just ask any out-of-shape single guy with no money how easy it is to find a woman who will give him the time of day. He probably is not going to think that women are all that open-minded when it comes to their attractions. That's not going to be his lived experience. No, women, broadly speaking, look for certain things in men. Men look for certain things in women. The things they look for are different, and the way they look for those things is also different because men are much more visual by nature. But it's not accurate to say that one group is more enlightened than the other. Now, we're speaking in general terms here, again, but it's certainly not accurate generally to say that men want women who look gaunt and famished. That was a trend on the fashion runways for a while. If any men were responsible for that, it would have been gay men, not heterosexuals. We had nothing to do with that. That's not what we're after. Men like all of the things that everybody already knows. Thinner waists, curvier hips, longer legs. Obviously, men are attracted to breasts, to the feminine form, in other words. Men are also attracted to things that are perhaps noticed on a more subconscious level, like facial symmetry, though women are attracted to that too. So why do men like these things? Well, perhaps the first answer to people like Mallory should be, we like it because we do. Piss off. We shouldn't have to justify our sexual attraction to you any more than you're presumably willing to justify yours to us. Especially when we're simply pursuing the same things in women that billions of other men have pursued throughout history. It's all very normal and healthy. One of the big things that makes these attributes attractive to men hips, breasts, and so on, youth as well, is that it's a marker of fertility. Our attraction to the feminine form is biological. It's a product not of patriarchy, but of evolutionary biology. A feminine woman with the classic sort of hourglass shape, or something close to it, signals health and vitality. Obesity signals sickness. Obese women also have more problems with their fertility, which again shows why men don't find it attractive. A man, whether it's in the forefront of his mind or not, is looking for a woman with whom he can start a family. That's why the personality traits that men find most attractive in women, because it's not all about looks. There is also an element of personality there. But all of the personality traits that men find attractive in women are all of the ones that will make her a good wife and mother. Not the ones that will make her a good CEO, okay? Not the ones that will make her successful in business, but the ones that will make her a good wife and mother. Is she caring? Is she compassionate? Is she affectionate? Does she have a maternal instinct? These are the things that men are looking for. And that's also why the most unattractive and repulsive woman to a man is an obese feminist, because she lacks literally everything that a heterosexual man wants. Everything. Which only makes her more bitter to straight men, which only makes her more repugnant to them by extension, which only increases her bitterness, and it becomes this vicious cycle. None of this is the fault of men. We're just being who we are, wanting what we want, okay? And we don't have to justify that to anyone, least of all Mallory, because today she is, I'm sorry to say, canceled. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends.